what about female police, like female cops? Like, I don't even know what I want to say about that, but.
So I say it like this. I say it like this. I say it like this. No cap. We back with another one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Easy.
Yeah.
Your boy Domi Dow Jones.
Okay.
We gotta speak for everybody, man. Me and him both, man. We got a very special guest today. Grew up with this man. Most genuine, one of the most genuine guys I know, man. You call him, you need something, he's gonna be there. My boy, the boys.
Yeah.
It's Deputy Joe, man. We appreciate you coming on today, man. For real. We just want to get into it. I think you were saying we're gonna the angle today is humanizing the police.
Humanizing the police. It's such a stigma on policing, you know, and we basically want to let the people know that police are human. Y'all are just like us. We're just like y'all, and we want to be careful about how we at first ask you some of these questions, you know, but then how we raise the kids to actually think of the police, you know, because if the youth is against the police thinking they're the enemy, then we're kind of clashing, you know. So first, I think the best method to humanize you would be for you to tell your story, you know, how you got into policing, because bro, you came from the school just like us, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and I ain't gonna lie, man, when I first heard that you decided you was gonna be a police,
God, that's how it was. That's how it was.
You know what I'm saying? It was nothing against you, but you know, it's that stigma. You know, we done had our experiences, you know, with the police, you know, just like a lot of us have.
It's funny you said that. Y'all remember Trayvon?
Yeah.
I remember I was in Mayfield one day and Trayvon saw me and Trayvon looked at me and said, Joe, you know better than that. Y'all not the only ones, you know, a lot of people, for one, it was two things. One was like, why would you do that? Two was like, you the police? Yeah. Not that I was a bad kid, but y'all would have never saw this. I would have never saw this.
Yeah, we was thick as thieves, man.
I never knew. So I mean, you know, the most human part of my story, how I became a police officer, the guy honest answer, and I tell it to people and they look at me crazy, is I needed a job. So let's go all the way back. You know, as you know, I went to JM from the area, graduated JM. I knew when I left JM, well, the dream was to play football. I don't know if you remember Dion, but I was actually supposed to go to Fort Union with Delano, but I couldn't afford it. Yeah, I went on a visit and everything. And that's the day I went on my visit. My mother, my brother, my father, we all drove down to Fort Union. I did the visit, met the team, met the coaches. I mean, it was hype. They were like, yeah, we can't wait to get you on and all this stuff. And then I remember that price tag. We drove from Fort Union. We got off on 17. We were coming down 17 about to hit Route 1. I'll never forget, right on that hill. I said, Mom, Dad, I'm not going to Fort Union. It was like, we just went on this visit. I said, you can't afford school for me and my brother. Y'all don't know, I have a twin brother. But I said, I'm going to join the military. And I knew just from how I was raised, I'm not saying, you know, that I was better than anything, but I knew the type of person I was, people I was hanging around. I wasn't going to school right away. I was going to end up in something. Whether it be bad or have a kid out here, I was going to end up in something, digging some sort of hole that I was not prepared for. So I left, went to the military, came back home, had kids, contracted overseas a little bit, did physical security. And, I did physical security when I came home. I did physical security, contracted, came back and did security again. And I was living in Norfolk with my family. And that's when I was like, okay, I need a job. Well, what kind of job can I do? I was in the military. I contracted.
And had the physical security.
And I did physical security. So what lines up with that?
Yeah.
Police work. It just lined it right up.
Right. And when was this? This was when?
This was 2014. Portsmouth, Virginia. While I was living in
So
Norfolk.
he's in the P, man.
Yeah.
He's very rough down there now.
Definitely,
Yeah.
man. Let me tell you, definitely. But actually, it was a really good experience as far as showing me some of the challenges police face. It's a different world down in Portsmouth. It's a completely different world down in Portsmouth. And I'm not just saying that because it is, they call it Detroit. Because it's rough. I'm saying that because of the resources the police department has, the overall, at least when I was there, I don't want to speak to it now. They've had a lot of changes. But the overall vision of a lot of cops that they had, it really showed me what kind of officer I wanted to be. I mean, it really instilled in me. In those couple years I was there before I came to Fredericksburg, it really instilled in me. And then my girl graduated school, and we made the decision to come up here. And I mean, when God works, He works. I had a job at Fredericksburg in a month. And it was quick. I never seen something move that fast. Put it this way, I had a job at Fred PD in a month. It took me a full calendar year to get the job in Portsmouth.
And that was a lot easier job in Fredericksburg versus Portsmouth.
So much more. Just the city. When I say the city, I'm talking about the people that I had to police, the resources the police department had, the relationship the police department has with the community.
Right.
So much easier. Much easier. So,
that stigma's big now, Portsmouth.
It's liking it like this, and having been in the military and actually having been in a war zone. And I hate to say that. I really hate to say it like that, but that's literally, I think, and it's a bad epidemic. I say, you get these police officers in these hard neighborhoods. Portsmouth is a rough, very gang-infested neighborhood, right? And they start to get, it's just almost like being in combat. You start to get the whole it's us against them kind of mentality, right? And you forget that this isn't Afghanistan, this isn't Iraq, this is Portsmouth, Virginia. These are people this is my community. I'm supposed to work with, live with, be a part of this community. But you start facing so much, I don't want to say adversity, but you start coming against so much adversity.
Yeah.
And you start to develop. And it's, to me, don't get me wrong, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's to understand that that's how we work. You can combat it rather than just letting it happen.
So, but was it hard to separate the two? For you being in that combat, to that line of fire, going into you said it was, you had to remember, these are your people, this is your community.
No, it wasn't hard at all. And the reason, and I'm one person, and I say it wasn't hard for me because, I don't know if I've ever told you, Reese knows a little bit about my family. I have an uncle he did 17 off a 32-year bid. I got a lot of family who've done jail time. I've lived in neighborhoods, been evicted, lived in shelters. I've gone through rough parts of life. I'm not saying my story's harder than most or easier than some others, but what I'm saying is I've seen how life can treat you the wrong way. And I've seen, thanks by the grace of God, my parents, they, showed me how to get out of that. But so when I come back home, I definitely have a mindset of, I don't know what everybody's going through. Just because this person's doing something wrong doesn't mean that their motive is just greed or something. They could really think that this is a means to an end for them.
Right.
So it wasn't hard for me to separate.
You say that, man, that reminds me. Before you went to, where did you, Bahrain? Bahrain. You know what I'm saying? At the time, like I said, when you first became police, I was like, dang, man, you didn't chose aggression.
Yeah.
And, I kind of, not that I battled, I treated you any different or whatever, it was just something that was on my mind. But I remember before you left, I was into something that maybe you didn't 100% agree with. It's like nothing crazy, but you told me, and I'll never forget, you said, I'll never judge a man on what he decides to do to feed his family.
Wow. He told you
He
that.
told me that. So I was like,
Wow.
how I'm going to judge this man? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You got to feed your family. That's what you decide to do, what you chose to do. Then
I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
We won't say, but I remember you talked, because I remember when you talked to me, it was almost like, you talk to your parents and you about to disappoint them.
Yeah.
That's how it was. He was kind of like, man, Joe, I got to, and I'm like, and the reason did I completely agree with it? No. Am I in a position to change what he has to do? No. If I was, I would have.
Right.
But at the same time, like I said, I know him as a man.
Yeah.
Just because he's in this spot where he feels like he has to do what he has to do doesn't mean he's a bad man.
Right.
People fall down all the time. I fall down all the time. You know what I mean? And he's obviously, me knowing him, like, if he's doing that, he's doing it for the moment. It's not going to be his life.
Yeah.
He's not the kind of person, once he gets past, okay, I needed to, get over this hump. Oh, this is so easy. That's not him. He's going to get it straight, right? Which she's done. I didn't even have to say that. I knew that. I already knew in my head. I was like, hey, man, you got to do what you got to do in the moment. I'm not.
So being that, like you say, that's no judgment. So how does that play a role when you're policing?
It actually, and so I'm glad we're having this talk because I get to tell you my personal feelings.
Absolutely.
No cap. It plays a role. It plays a huge role because I am now a deputy, was a police officer, and I have a job to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have more fun now as a deputy. I mean, I had good fun as a police officer, but so now I'm working in the courthouse, which means depending on the day, I'm either in the courtroom working like a doorpost, or, which happens a lot of times just because I'm good at it, I'm with the inmates. So I'll bring the inmates in when they come from the jail. I'll get them up on the floor, I take them in and out of the courtroom, and I stay back there, feed them lunch. So I'm pretty much a CO at the courthouse.
Yeah, you in the AC.
Right. I'm chilling.
Off the street.
But a lot of these people I arrest them. They know me, right? They come up to me, oh, that's Porter. They know. And we cool as thick as thieves back there. We'll talk, we'll have fun because, just like I was getting ready to say, it plays a role because I have a job to do, right? That's why I tell the conversation I have with the inmates is like, they call it a game for a reason. Your job is to get away. My job is to catch you. But there's no personal feelings, right? If you run and I don't catch you, okay, I'll catch you another day. If I do catch you, whatever you did, you did. That ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm not holding my personal judgment against you, right? I may feel some kind of way. So like let's say I catch you because you steal all the time. Then I see you outside and you're away from that and you ask to come to my house. Okay, I have every right to be like, I don't know, man, you like to steal. But I'm still not gonna judge you as a person.
Right.
But you, like you said, that's personal too. That's you personally.
That's me personally.
We do see, in times where there's situations where we've seen on the news where it does get personal on the job. You know what I mean? Like, have you seen that? And then how do you deal with that when it's, like people are stepping out of the boundaries of it being a job or being a job, being a duty, it becomes personal.
Let me see. I've seen it. I've seen it. I'll be honest with you. I can only really remember actually seeing it once as a supervisor. And I said to say this. I didn't really see it too much at Fredericksburg. I know people have their opinions, but I really didn't see it too much at Fredericksburg. I saw a lot of stuff in Portsmouth, but that was the beginning of my police career. So even though I saw some stuff that I kind of felt like that's kind of weird, I was so junior into I didn't really know what I was seeing. Is that good? Is that bad? Like, I don't really know it was not trying to call Portsmouth a bad place, but like I said, they deal with things so much differently because of what they have to deal with. My worst day shift in Portsmouth, and I was supposed to get off 6 in the morning till 6 in the evening. I got off at 2 in the morning because literally right at 5:30, I went to one shooting. At 2 in the morning, it ended with me going to 4. 4 shootings, 1 murder, and a robbery. So
this is one night.
That's one night, and I work days. So coming to Fredericksburg, I've seen one time, and I was a supervisor at the time, that I can clearly say, yes, this person has made it personal, and I had to separate that person from the situation, and it turned into a big thing. It turned into a investigation, and the person, I don't want to talk bad about him. That person,
don't say their name.
I'm not gonna say names. And we'll get more into that as we talk. But that person had been a cop for a long time and had been neglected by the police department. And I say that to say is he had been going through some stuff that they should have been seeing. should have been helping with.
I see.
And by the time the situation happened, it was almost like, somebody with anger or something built up just came out. Now, he didn't physically hurt anybody. He just ran his mouth, and it was like, yo, calm down. But for the most part, I haven't personally seen somebody get personal. Now, I don't know if you guys know, I want to say it was 2021. 2021, 2022, they enacted a law. It's law now that you will intervene if another officer, so if we're out on a call and the read starts going a little too hard, whether it be verbally, physically, or whatever, it is the law now that me and you will be like, you need to back off. Because if we don't, and he keeps going, all three of us are now
part of it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So here, this leads me to this, right? Politics and policing, right? Because, Congress makes the laws, right? And you all enforce the law. So if you are just abiding by law, that's your job, right? But due to like you're God-fearing man, no, you're not judging people. How does you have personal political beliefs? Every officer does, right? How do you separate that and like treat all the laws the same? Because if you break one, it's hypocritical. You know what I mean? They kind of go hand in hand, but how do you? Are you leaning more towards certain laws, or what I'm saying?
Well, one thing, and I will say this, and they told me this in Portsmouth too, but I've heard it in Portsmouth, heard it in Fredericksburg, and now the sheriff's office heard that too. And I'm pretty sure anybody who's listening, who's an officer or law enforcement, they've always said this: don't be a hypocrite. So, meaning, if you do it, then don't. Now, granted, when I say do it, I'm not talking about like I go to Walmart and steal, but I will sit here and say right here on camera, I consistently drive 10 miles over the speed limit, right? So do I write tickets for 10 miles over? No. I don't write tickets for 10 miles over. I did a traffic stop in Portsmouth one time because the guy's headlight was out. Stopped him, pulled over, walked up and said, hey man, the reason I stopped you is your headlight is out. Had a little conversation, said, I'm going to go back to the car, write a ticket. He said, hey, wait a minute, wait 1 second. He said, how you going to write me for my headlight out when your headlight is out? I turn around. In my head, I had no clue. My headlight was out, and I looked right up. I said, "You right." Gave it right back to him. How can I write that ticket? And I'm gonna pull off and ride around with this headlight out. So that was one thing that was always instilled in me, like the small stuff. If you got 10, I got 10 in my truck. I don't pull over for 10. I always thought that was a little petty anyway.
But you can't even do that no more, okay?
Not as a primary. Now, granted, we'll talk about
10 order the headlight now, though, right?
We'll talk about why that is a good tool, but how it can be abused, which is why the law was changed. So as far as keeping my politics and my beliefs, certain things you just don't have discretion on. But that word right there, discretion, officers need to know how to use it. I feel like discretion is what keeps the humanizing element in policing. Knowing when to use it. Discretion and de-escalation. So I'll give you this actually happened. Before the law changed, in the state of Virginia, if you were convicted of larceny twice, you have 2 convictions, not just charges, 2 convictions. That third time you get charged, doesn't matter if it's a 25-cent piece of gum or $1 million book, it's a felony, regardless. I'm working off duty at Wegmans. Mom comes in with her little girl. Little girl's all dressed up. I'm watching this on camera. She picks up a cake and some other items and walks out the door. So we go stop her. Cake ends up being baby girl's birthday cake. I think she's turning 6 and she has a birthday thing in her head. So we pull her in the office. She's being real compliant because she's like, I don't want my daughter to. So she's just trying to make it seem like, we got to go talk to these people. I run her. It's third offense. State of Virginia says I do not have discretion in a felony. In any felony, there's no, some misdemeanors I can say yes and no. Felony, I do not have a choice. So how do I ruin
her day in the most
Right.
pleasant way possible.
So what I did, now, what I could have done, what the situation could have dictated, the simplest form is, start a fence, call CPS, come get your daughter, click clack right in front of the daughter, put her in the car, and I'm gone. I could have did that. But why? Think about how you would have felt in that situation. So I said, look, I explained to her, because I can't lie to her, this is what has to happen. Now she's crying, this is what has to happen, but this is what I want to do. I have time. Let's call somebody to get your daughter. I talked to the lady at Wegmans. I bought the cake. They didn't want to let me buy the cake. They wanted to throw the cake away. See, humanizing, right? Let's buy this cake. She called her sister. Her aunt came. We gave the cake to the aunt. We made it seem like, oh, yeah, auntie's taking to your birthday party. Mommy just has to go handle some business. And then we left. She thanked me. She thanked me. She asked me to play some gospel music in the car. I did. But what was the point? You know, why would I sit here and try to ruin this little girl's day? Because it's like, you know, this is the question I know is coming up. Is how do we relate to the children and get them to trust the police? That little girl would have seen all of that.
Right. So she would have automatically thought the police is the enemy.
Even.
Right.
Bad guys.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so good on you, man. Good on you, man. We want to let the people know that y'all are people just like us, man. Like you came from.
So when it comes to having to do your job, the politics of it all, and you still, I think, and I don't want to speak broadly, but officers need to remember you are still a human, and there's still things and steps that can be taken to humanize the situation. We don't have to. It's not a brute force job. You know, it's not a. You know, these are kids, and we're not holding the belt spanking tails. We're out here to serve the community, protect and serve the community. So yeah, you got to remember that element all the time.
Yeah, be on the side with or part of the community.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. I think that's the healthiest relationship in a neighborhood with the police.
It's got to be.
You know, but man, we're gonna take a quick break. This is No Cap Radio.
Alright, y'all, we back. So what we want to jump back into with Deputy Joe here, because he was talking about, you know, dealing with the youth today. So we know the youth are, you know, a little skeptical when it comes to the police, just like in the black community in general, you know what I mean? But we want to touch on the youth and just talking about just mending that relationship and showing them that, you know, the police officers can be on their side, or, you know what I mean, they're humans as well. Yeah. So how do you look at what's the best way to mend that relationship?
I mean, everybody here is parents, right?
Right.
How you build a relationship with your kid?
Spending time.
You gotta interact.
Right.
You gotta interact. I mean, so most kids, just like most biases in this world, in my personal belief, are more learned than experienced. I mean, if you think about, I mean, you can go to racism and a bunch of stuff, but let's just talk about the attitude towards policing. Most kids don't have an experience of their own. You know, especially at a young age, 9, 10, 11, you don't have an experience of your own that you're building your bias off. You're building your bias off of what you see. And I'm granted, I'm not saying that's you know, a bad thing, because that happens. If I see my dad get arrested, if I see my uncles, or, you know, I can remember when I lived in Old Forge, my father, who lives in D.C., almost every time, because, you know, he'd come to my grandmother's van, come into Old Forge, pick us up, come out of Old Forge. Now there's 3 black males in the car. Every time.
They
pulled over. Every time. I can't say every time, but a lot. A lot. Yeah. You know, and I was too young to understand why. I mean, I was a teenager, but I'm still not getting what's happening. My dad's got it. My dad had a positive attitude towards it. It pissed him off, but he never let us feel that anger. But what I'm saying is, you know, had I got hip to it, had my dad told me what was up, I would have started building that bias based off of his experience. So I think one of the biggest things is you have to, especially with kids, you gotta interact. You have to interact. You know, Peace in the Paint, the little, I want to say 4 years ago, either 4 or 5 years ago, I got with the organizer of Peace in the Pain, and we actually organized a police basketball team to play against some of the kids at Peace in the Pain. Now it's gone from that to us playing the fire department, but we're involved in
the community activities. Yeah,
we're involved in the community. We're trying to organize a flag football game. The current school resource officer at James Rowe is really good about involving himself with the kids, but that's it. You have to get out there. You have to speak with these kids, interact with these kids in a non law enforcement function.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't wait till the moment something happens. People walk up, hey man, what's going on? No.
Right.
I gotta come to you when everything's good and cool.
And that may never happen.
Right. Yeah. And then in that moment, if I'm there to investigate something, I can't talk to you, the way I want to. I'm just gonna be interviewing you or something like that. It's not authentic. You're gonna look at you're only here because you want to know about this or you want to know about that. No. I have to come to you on my own time. I used to do enforcement. Me and my good partner, I'll put her name like this, CJ Hall. She's a gang detective enforcement now, but me and her, we would balance enforcement with community relation. So there was one day we would be like, look, enforcement. We're just gonna go out here, write tickets, get drugs and guns and all that stuff. Then we would balance it. Another day, we would go to the dollar store, get bags and bags of candy. Go into these neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods that needed us. So I say that to say, like, we weren't going into the rich neighborhoods and stuff. We're going to the neighborhoods where the kids need this interaction, see the positive interaction. Yeah. And we would wait till the kids get off the bus. We got the bags of candy out, and we would like ask math questions or English questions based off their grade and give them candy and just, just you have to just get out there and connect. That's the only way.
Yeah, because you do want the kids to see y'all as role models. Yeah. Like y'all are setting the example for the community, or in an ideal situation,
And don't forget, man, you my right hand with Culture Rewrite.
Yeah.
So we do that, and that's about to start up soon. We're in the middle school, going in, talking to the kids, and mentorship. So
that helps a lot.
Yeah. So you definitely actively doing that, man. We definitely appreciate that.
I've been on calls or on the scene of something, and like you said, the culture stigma, right? And the culture stigma's been there since we were kids. So even though we was kids, let's put us back at JM. We hanging out in Mayfield. Now, if you was at Walmart and the officer said what's up to you, you might say what's up. But if you standing on the court at Mayfield and everybody and the officer said what's up to you, are you gonna say what's up?
Yeah, a whole different environment.
But that's how I know I've reached some of these kids, because I've been courts at Mayfield, and one of the kids on the basketball team, he was in a fight at school, wasn't really fighting, it was just a part of it. And I had a heart-to-heart with him and his mom. I said, look, I could charge you. I'm not going to. I don't want to. You got a future ahead of you, blah, 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 blah. I had this nice talk with him. Mm-hmm. I'm standing in Mayfield now. A whole hood is there. He walks up, dapped me up. I said, what's up, man? He said, yeah, you helped me out. I always say what's up to you. And shook my hand. He didn't care who saw it. Didn't care who saw it. And I'm like, that's the connection you want to make.
Yeah.
Because he regardless of what the streets may say, regardless of the stigma, he's like, I'm cool with Porter. I'm going to go that Porter. I might not shake nobody else's hand, but I've got a connection with him. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, man. And that reminds me of Officer Jones.
Officer
like
Jones.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's always going out with Officer Jones. You know what I'm saying?
He didn't care who saw it. You would talk to OJ because OJ connected with us as a human.
Right, he did. He did.
He could be anywhere. You gonna shout out OJ, you gonna shake his hand, and he could have been there on the call. You wouldn't care because we knew OJ.
Right, OJ pulled me over one time. For real. Because my headlights was out. Right. Hey man, turn them headlights off. Get out of here.
Yeah. But see, that's a good, honest cop. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So how do the police the police?
So one thing that I do really miss about being a police officer was field training. So y'all don't know who field training is. Field training, or what field training is. Field training is the process after a police recruit leaves the academy. Normally, you'll come from the academy, you'll do some sort of in-house training at your department for a couple weeks, just learning systems and all that. And then you get put with the field training officer. This is actually the real police training. I mean, we tell them all the time, like, yo, just get to the academy, your real training's on the street. This is when it's live. This is when I'm taking you to real calls, real people, real decisions, and I'm showing you how to handle it.
It's the ride along.
It's the ride along.
Okay.
But not only am I showing you how to handle it, I'm showing you how to break it down, and I'm giving you my advice and spin on how to mentally process these things. Mm-hmm. And I loved it because when I was in Portsmouth, they made field training like a military experience. Like, I mean, they're trying
to combat. You know,
they trying to scare you with it and all this stuff. And I learned from it, and I also learned that I don't want to do it that way. I want to be chill, because nothing's a big deal till it's a big deal. Now you got to be ready for the big deal, but let's not make it one till it is one. Mm-hmm. And so the biggest, I think, the first step in policing the police is we got to change certain perspectives and certain thoughts. We got to. So these field training officers have to really spend time speaking to their officers, their trainees, and really explaining to them everything that we're talking about. Hey, these people are human, right? They've made mistakes. You know, not only have they made mistakes, you're a police officer. 9 times out of 10, when you encounter somebody, it's just a regular day of work for you, and it's the worst day of their life. So you need to be prepared to hear certain things, to encounter certain attitudes. It doesn't make this person that you're dealing with a bad person. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we need to do, and I'm not saying that training is bad, but we really need to harp on the fact that we need to teach humanization in the training. Mm-hmm. And then the next step is, and I think overall the country as a whole, thanks to 2020, has taken great strides towards it, is we need to be forced. I don't want to say forced.
Held accountable.
And I'm gonna tell you this. Fredericksburg, and I'm not trying to say, Fredericksburg is the best place to work, but they will hold you accountable. And that department, for me, it really showed me like nobody is bigger than anything. Mm-hmm. If you mess up, we will hold you accountable. It doesn't matter how big or small, we're going to hold you accountable for it. And I like that. That's how it's supposed to be, right? I need to know, because I'm not bigger than anybody I police. It's just as easy as you mess up today, I can mess up tomorrow. So yeah, we just definitely need to get to a point, and I think we really are getting there. At least in the departments that I see, get to the point where we're holding people accountable. And one thing that my sheriff has done, now that I'm in the sheriff's office, and I'm just seeing this a little bit more so with him, I'm not saying anybody else doesn't do it, is he is very approachable and open to dialogue. So I, as a black man who grew up in some of these neighborhoods, as a black man who's policing the people he grew up with, obviously I have concerns. Obviously I have, some thoughts and feelings about it. Mm-hmm. He's open at dialogue, so I can pretty much talk to him about whatever I want. Then it's not a one way either. It's not like, okay, say it, get out the system, going back to work. I can say it and have an honest, open dialogue with him. Mm-hmm. Talk to him about some things, maybe change some things. And just like you said, it just brings back that human element into the whole process. Mm-hmm. We're not robots, because that's just how it used to be. Go up there, hook them up, book them, go back, hook somebody else up. Mm-hmm. We're not robots. I feel like I am allowed to feel. I'm allowed to think. I'm allowed to say, hey, I don't agree with this. Let's talk about it. And that makes it easier, to say, hey, I think this is wrong. I think this person did something wrong. I think, because I don't feel like, haven't felt in the last couple of departments I've been in, I don't feel like that if I say something about, hey, this officer did this, it's not going to come back on me. Right? I know there's been a stigma.
Because I think that'll prevent a lot of people from going to the higher ups, because that kickback.
Yeah, right. It might come back on you. We can't try. I've never personally, I've not been in a part of a department that did, but I know that officers have felt that way. You don't want to be the officer that said something, right? I come from departments where you better be the officer that said something, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to be able to speak up, and not worry about what's going to happen next.
And I think that's the culture of the department, right? Because it starts from the top down. So if you in a rough area like Portsmouth, that might not fly the same as you going to the upper higher ups in Fredericksburg. You know, so it's like it's tainted. You know what I mean? The chain of command is corrupt. You know what I mean? So that's the side where it's like areas like that. You know, it's like where do you even start with something like that?
Yeah.
From the top down, you know, or
well, I mean that's. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying it just starts within. Like you said, if you saying in Fredericksburg, it makes sense. If y'all are holding each other accountable within the system or the department, it's gonna trickle down. You know what I mean? You're gonna see less, I guess you would say, injustice, you know what I'm saying, on the streets, because they like, oh, hold on now, you know what I mean? We already know, you know what I'm saying, that's not right. You know what I'm saying? It's a different vibe, it's a different culture. So
and it's so simple. I will say, as an officer, my entire law enforcement career from Portsmouth here, I have been blessed to work with good supervisors. I've worked with really good supervisors. I've had a few, that were kind of, but Sergeant Doyle was my first sergeant in Portsmouth. And that man used to make me think so much. That was his game. He used to make me think a lot about everything. Just think about it. He would barely answer questions. He would barely answer the question, but then I find like a day or so later, I'm like, oh, that's what he was trying to do. He used to make me open my brain to think about stuff. And he's the one I think that really put me on the path of like, look, this is chess, not checkers. This is a thinking man's game. You have to think, you have to be human, you have to remember who you are to do this, right? To do it the right way. So from Portsmouth all the way down, I've had supervisors who really put me in the right spot. But yeah, like I was saying, you have to be able to hold people accountable, and it's not always something big. It's just being able to speak up. We had a guy run from us. He was on furlough from prison. We ended up pulling his car over. He was on furlough from prison, never went back. We're in the back of the car. The whole car actually ended up being wanted, but we're in the back of the car. I got one guy who's wanted. He's lying to me about who he is, and then my friend is talking to another guy. The other guy ends up running, so we chase him. My friend catches up to him, tackles him, right? And he's just in the moment. I mean, I won't put his name up, but he's probably he is one of the best officers I know. I mean, he is solid, fair, great guy. We tackle him. Guy's on the ground. He's like, give me your hands, give me your hands. He's giving a click command. It's not cussing. Give me your hands, give me your hands. He doesn't even realize that he's giving him his hands. So his hands are behind his back, and he's got him. He's, give me your hands, give me. I'm like, oh, yeah, you got him. You know, you got, oh. And that just that little bit, because, he, in his mind, I don't have his hands. He might have escalated or did something else because he didn't think. And it was just me simply saying, oh, wait, man, you got him. Oh. And everything was good. The guy was good. Everything was good. It's just that simple, but not being scared to say something in a moment like that can lead to other things.
Yeah.
Or we've had situations where, somebody gets a little amped up.
Yeah.
Hey, man, let's take a quick break.
Man, yo, this reminds me. So, like, with that example right there, say this was one of those police incident on CNN for 3 weeks, you know what I mean? And it wasn't give me your hands, it was put down the gun, you know what I'm saying? And he shot him. Is that the same, like, mind where you'd be like, oh, he was just amped up?
That's one of the hardest questions.
It's because it's like, man, I didn't realize I had his hands.
I have literally testified in front of the magistrate to get a warrant a couple times, and I told my story. Hey, went here, this happened. Now, everything for the warrant was there. my memory is saying, here's a good one. I had to fight a dude on PCP at the hospital. After we fought him and got him handcuffed.
I know you lost that fight, Joe.
Hey, look, they don't die on that. They don't, you know. After we fought him, the security guard handed me a cigarette pack and said, "Hey, this is his." I opened the cigarette pack. He had 2 dippers in there. For the dippers are cigarettes dipped in PCP. Mm-hmm. He had 2 dippers in there. So, no, I'm sorry. I went into his pocket, got the cigarette pack out. He had 2 dippers in there. Went to the magistrate. I testified to that. That's what my brain is telling me because I'm serious. I couldn't remember nothing different. My supervisor looked in that video. He said, "How'd you get the cigarettes?" I said, "I went into his right pocket. Went into his right pocket, pulled it out." I said, "No, you didn't." I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "No, you didn't. Let's watch the video." He had dropped the cigarettes. The security guard picked them up and handed it to me. But my brain and everything in me was saying, I got them out of his pocket. And that happens. So for me, the Monday morning quarterback, that's what we call it, a situation, it's really hard. It's really hard because I'm going to look at a video and say, okay, just like their supervisors are looking at the video, it says training dictates that we handle it this way. But in real time, it's actually unfolding in real time.
Man, it's going to happen how it happened.
And it's going to be that quick.
Yeah.
It's just like watching a football play.
Yeah.
Right? Why did the running back take that hold? He didn't see it that fast. We can see it clear as day from all these different angles.
Right.
It's so hard. And that's why training, and that's another thing that's happening, training is so important. There's things...
Because the more you rehearse it, though, in training, the less possible for that to happen.
D, I'll tell you this. I have done things that... So, Special Forces, they call them operators. You know why they call them operators? Because they train so much. Well, it's one of the reasons behind it. They train so much when in the time of battle, they operate. Mm-hmm. They just go. I have been in situations where I took 3-4 steps. Like I step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by the time I hit 5, I'm like, dang, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. I pulled over a car in Portsmouth. He started ducking streets. I'm like, okay, training says this dude's about to run for me, especially where I'm at. So I'm calling it in. Sure enough, he finds a place to pull. I see it as a passenger. He runs. I call in his direction. I call in his description. And before I even know it, I'm at the back of my car, gun out, giving orders. And I remember this. I'm sitting there saying, show me your hands, show me your hands.
And you don't remember how
and
you
I
got
can't. It happened so quickly. Like, I could see myself doing it. I can't remember the thought process of doing it. I just operated. I knew.
It's just natural.
I had a passenger in the car. I got somebody running. I don't know what's in the car. Don't know if the car is stolen. I need to hold this person here. I need to call this in. And I just did it. And it was scary sometimes. Like, dang. But that's why training is so important. Because if I can get to the point where I'm just step 1, step 2, step 3, step 1, step 2, step 3, and what's so hard for police work, just like any other job, is sometimes it's not so simple as step 1, step 2, step 3. Sometimes it's step 1, step 2. Now if they do this, it's either 3 or 3A or 3B. Yeah. So it kind of divides. But training, there's things that I learned in the academy that I haven't trained on since. You know what I mean?
But I do that too, though, man. I go in the mall and just next thing I know, I bought this and bought that. Yo, how did I get? What did I just do?
How did I get here?
Wow.
It's a good and a bad, because if you lean on your training, and when I say lean on your training, I'm not just talking about physical tactics. I'm not just talking about pulling out your gun and shooting it or, fighting somebody. One thing I still teach in the academy to this day with the captain from the police department, Captain Coles, who's been one of my mentors, is de-escalation. And I use a couple of my videos, one where I talked a guy out of fighting us, one where I almost talked the guy out of fighting us and he fought us. But what I'm saying is, I train to use de-escalation. I train my trainees to use de-escalation.
That bring another point, the de-escalation. But see, the training, you're also taught to be, I guess, a step over the threat. Like if they got a knife, you gotta have a gun, right? Is it like that? You have to be
right. So if I got a man standing across the road with a knife, yes, I'm gonna draw my gun. I don't have to shoot it. I just have to be ready.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop the de-escalation process.
But see, and I think this is but think about it from the other way. He has the knife, right? You draw the gun. Now he draw the gun. You see what I'm saying? Now it's
you're right.
So it's escalating, but you have to stay a step over, right? Ain't that how you train? Like to be a level of over the threat as far as.
Well, yes.
It's hard. I can see it being difficult to de-escalate because you have to escalate.
But that's not necessarily. I understand how you're saying. Right, you have to be ready. I can understand how you're saying. He has a knife and I have a gun. Just him seeing my gun will make him pull out his gun. I get that, but I have to combat that with my verbal de-escalation skills and other things. Creating space. There's a whole continuum to de-escalation.
And you have to be built for this job. This is a tough job. You have to be built for it. Because if you scared out there, then you know what I'm saying?
And then you wondering how you got there. Because you know what I'm saying? Fear will drive you to.
Oh. Yeah. Did y'all see the video recently? Matter of fact, it's crazy. Captain Coles just texted me. I sent him this video this morning. Female was shot and killed in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Okay, she was shot and killed in Ohio for shoplifting. She's pregnant, 21 years old. I don't know who's going to see all this. I'm not trying to talk bad about any officers, but there was no de-escalation. It was very aggressive from the jump. Very aggressive from the jump. I'm not going to talk about the tactics. That's a whole other thing. But just the verbal. There was no attempt to calm it down.
What was her crime? What did she?
Stole something out of the store. They said she concealed bottles of liquor. But they walk up. Get the car, get the F out of the car. I'm like, oh, yeah. You got the time. That's whole part of the class. You got the time, you got the space. Yeah. Let's de-escalate. Let's come in calm. There's no point in you don't have to
come in hot
because like you said, I can escalate a situation. Right? We've had police officers get shot and they or fought. I should say fought because they didn't properly identify themselves. The person whooped their tail. What did you say you were the police? Well, I didn't get a chance. That's part of it. Yeah. You a grown man. If you stand on the corner and I put my hand on your back, would you get him off? You don't know who I am. Yeah. And I can't sit here and rightfully say you knew I was a police. You had no clue. Mm-hmm. So you have to remember the steps, right? We have to. If there's time, we need to talk to these people.
You know what I get out of all of this? Training is key.
Training is key.
Training is key, man.
Training is key. But here, I'm gonna tell you, here's an epidemic in law enforcement. It's not really their fault, because our numbers are so down, right?
What, like the people just want
because of the stigma in law enforcement. Nobody wants to be police officers, right? And we could take this a whole nother.
How about that?
But nobody wants to be police officers, so the numbers are down. So what does that mean? What that means is, I have people who are getting hired, even though our numbers are down, but I got people getting hired, but I don't have training officers. So now
they going out there with no training?
No, they're getting trained. But let's say I got you, been on the street 2 years, still learning yourself. And I got you, 16 years in. You like, I'm too young, I don't want to teach nobody. You like, look, I don't want to deal with nobody. And I say, you know what, I don't care. You're training. So now I put somebody in your car, you don't know enough, and you don't really want to teach them. So how much training they really going to get? Yeah. It's hard, right? Would you want your son or daughter to go to school and learn from a teacher who really don't want to be there?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to give them the bare minimum, but whenever you're teaching, we all know this, just like being parents, teaching is not a bare minimum job. And are you really going to care about the product you're producing?
Right. So they teach them the wrong way.
Not necessarily the wrong way. They teach them just enough to get by. So I'm not really teaching you how to, like the extra stuff. You know, me talking to my trainees about just keeping the human aspect of this stuff. Me saying, really explaining discretion to them. I can just go down the book. All right, man. If A equals B, then we get C or whatever. I can just go down the book. I don't have to add the extra.
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, just like that, like your training also made you think.
Right.
Not, yeah, you get that. Yeah.
Right. Exactly, and that's what really develops the good officers. FPD. I know my first training officer in Portsmouth. My first training officer. It was what was his name? I can't think of his name. Alex. Good. Used to, just like my first sergeant, used to really make me think. And he was really, I can remember, he was the first one because I was sitting there like, hey, they stole a book. Let's wrap them up. And he's like, why? Why? What are we about to accomplish from arresting this person? He was the person that made me think about discretion. Like, okay, well, they did it. Now, in this situation, look at this situation. This isn't a blanket situation. Look at this situation. Look at this person. And let's go off the information we have about this. What are we going to gain from this arrest?
Yo, that remind me of Denzel on Training Day. Hoyt trying to arrest him. He's like, no, that ain't how this work.
Yeah, because it's a thinking man's game. Like, you got to really sit how. And it's not about when I say what do we gain, like what is the police game. It's like, what are we really doing? Are we punishing this person? Are they learning a lesson? Is there something that needs to happen, or will we be better off going another route?
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It should be rehabilitation more than punishment. Right. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. For anything you do. You know what I'm saying? It's like it has to be some sort of mercy in the, like, just like we here in an attempt to humanize the police, but we also have to humanize the us. You know what I'm saying? The criminals. You have to human, like you said in the beginning. You don't knock a man or judge a man for how he provides for his family, but that's your internal beliefs. Other police, now they gonna say he did wrong. He's a criminal. They labeling him as that, and that's pure judgment. So it's like if there was like a moral evaluation in the training, I think that could really judge if you suitable to be a cop. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be a good person within because you're a role model.
But the thing is, that's hard to do. And the reason being is morals change, especially doing this job. And that's another thing I heard in training that forced me to try to prove them wrong. I'll never forget. I hadn't been on the street yet. Fresh out of the academy in Portsmouth, I'm sitting down in a little room. There's 15 of us just got out of the academy, and the training sergeant comes in. He starts giving us a speech, and he said, "You're going to learn to see the worst in people. Like, you're going to learn to expect the worst out of people." And he said, "This job changes how you see the world," and it can. Mm-hmm. You got to think about it. I am seeing people at their worst, 12 hours a shift. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the worst of the worst. I'm seeing, pedophiles. I'm seeing murderers. I'm seeing people who, drug addicts who accidentally killed their babies. I'm seeing the worst, right? And I have to sit here. If I don't consciously keep a cool mind and clear head, mm-hmm. I'm gonna let that change my perception. So that
what do you call it? Cognitive dissonance. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so that moral compass that I had when I started, 12 years later, may be completely different. And that's what you see. You see a lot of officers get hardened. And that's another thing. I don't know how much time we got, but mental health.
Yo, that's what I want. That's what I wanted to ask you. What's happening in y'all's department to, I guess, balance that?
So, and again, I want everybody to be clear. I don't know the world. I don't know all these other departments. I can just speak out the departments that I've served with. And mainly Fredericksburg, because that's who I was with longest. And when I say Fredericksburg Police Department, understand the police department and the sheriff's department almost go hand in hand. We kind of do the same thing. And we work together on a lot of things. Fredericksburg Police has pushed their mental health a lot. They're really on the forefront of a lot of things. And I'm not trying to be a commercial for them, but they really are forefront on a lot of things of trying to create a healthier environment for officers so that they can have a healthier product on the street. I know myself, I've used EAP employee assistance program like 3 times.
Yeah.
I still go to counseling to this day through the VA now, but they bring in mental health specialists to hold little seminars and offer their services, and then their supervisors. And this is, I can tell you, when I first met Sergeant over there, they pressed that on me. Like, look, you see somebody who needs some help, you need to pull them to the side and start talking to them. Like that is, part of that is a major part of being a supervisor. Is we're not just here to make sure that all the arrests are good and all the paperwork's fine. We need to make sure our people are okay. And if they're not okay, it's incumbent upon you to say you're not okay. And they're really big on that, man. I was pulled in the office like twice. Like, yo, what you got going on? Can we give you some time? Can I give we're short in the street. Jump on. Well, we're short. Go home. I need you good here. Go home. So they're really good about mental health. Is a huge thing, man.
Yeah. Well, I hope we accomplished our objective here to humanize the police for our audience. And man, Joe, we thank you, man, for coming on this show and all of the information and just the perspective that you were able to give. Because to be honest, I've never sat down with a cop like this. You know what I'm saying? Or I guess that's the right term to use, but I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Like, this was, I think, was very beneficial for the audience and the communities where they actually can, and the youth, to go forward and look at police differently, in a healthier light. So
I do want to touch on, I know we had one last question to wrap up with, and I want to tie in as well. And we talk about all this, like, doing things the right way, humanizing and whatnot. Now, when it was thick when it comes to police brutality, you know what I mean? When you out on that field, you know what I mean, and you drawing your gun, or you taking step A, step B, step C, in your mind as a human, all these repercussions are playing here. You're seeing all this stuff that's on TV, what's happening in this area and that area. How does that play a part? And I think that ties into the weight that you take home with you, at the end of the day. If that makes sense.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I know that any force that I use is going to be on another human. And, there's this saying of, and it is, I can't get around it, because sometimes people will put you in a situation where it's either you or me, right? And, in that situation, it has to be me. If you put me there. But I don't recreate that situation. And it's very hard. Sometimes you do things, thank God I've never had to pull the trigger. I've been close, but never had to. But it's a lot of weight. You take it home. Just the little things that you do, the little things that you see, the decision that you make, me having to arrest that mom. I didn't want to do that.
Tough job,
right?
Man.
And
Tough
you take it home, it sits on you, man. It sits on you, and once again, like I said, the whole mental health thing. I think a lot of officers, police, just being a police officer, period, has a high divorce rate. I think the suicide rate's gone down, but it's it takes effect on you. You carry a lot of people's weight with you. So, you definitely need to take care of your mental health, and take care of your mental health, and just like I said, if you just remember the human part of things, it'll make things a little bit better. Stop operating as a robot, because you're not a robot. Everybody thinks that they can be. I feel like you get into that mentality where you feel like you can operate as a robot, and you're not realizing what you're actually taking on. Because at some point, it's going to get you. It's going to. At some point, something's going to affect you.
Yo, that really makes you think, like, you become part of law enforcement. You're really, like, this is a life decision. Like, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you sacrificing your life, essentially.
And you can't turn it off. You can't. When I say you can't turn it off, like, you can't do certain things. Once you become a police officer, once you're in law enforcement, you just can't be around. You can't, even when you're off. Like, I went to Jamaica, and my brother went on the Bob Marley tour, and I wanted to go. They were smoking. Smoking was legal over there, or decriminalized at the time, but it wasn't legal here, and I couldn't risk the chance of, I go out I go out to Walmart and let's say, I'm walking across the street with my kid and some car comes a little too fast. Most people are like, oh, slow that down. They want to say what they want to say. Well, somebody recognizes that I'm an officer and they call and say, yo, this officer cussed at me. Mm-hmm. I'm in trouble. I don't have the freedoms as much people think as regular people do because the badge requires that I don't. I have to be held to a certain standard. So it's definitely like this.
Yeah, it's a big sacrifice.
We'd have been chilling. We was on the streets. Mm-hmm. This dude phone ain't never stopped ringing and messages. I'm like, oh, you just it's all work.
Yeah, and it's not just a commitment for you; it's a commitment for your family. Your family's gonna give up a lot. I messed up. I ain't gonna lie to you. I gave too much to the job too soon. And so now when I talk to, which is another reason I'm at the sheriff's department now, I had to give up street life. But I try to I end all my classes at the academy by telling them, look, family comes first. Don't put this job before anything. Family, you as a person come first. This is a job. It is a calling, but it's a job. And at the end of the day, you can live without this. You can't live without your family.
Yeah.
So put them first.
We playing Madden, man.
You got to make some decisions for your family over the money sometimes, but that's a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Making those sacrifices, man, because family, money's so important. Family has to be one of the highest, you know what I'm saying, the thing you value the most. But I'm sure, man, a lot of those cops probably don't even have no family. Like, they probably, you know what I'm saying?
Well, this is definitely a profession. If you dive too far into it, your family can walk away. I don't think anybody's ever prepared for how much time this thing takes from you, especially in the beginning. Now, can you successfully have a family being also? Yes, it happens all the time, more times than you think. It's possible. Those guys or girls went into it with the mindset of, I'm going to put my family first. I'm going to make sure I maintain. My mentor, Cole, he's been doing this 20 years. He's a captain now, but he started off in the street. And he's got a great marriage, great life. It's possible. You just have to have that mentality. And I hope that, and I think that part of it too, remembering, what you're doing it for and what's important, I think that helps you keep the human element as well.
Yeah. What about female police, like female cops? Like, I don't even know what I want to say about that, but.
So I'll say it like this. From what we were going to say earlier. When I was saying nobody wants to be police, I'll say this and maybe you can wrap it, but I think one of the biggest challenges facing police is the police departments in a lot of places don't reflect the neighborhoods they police.
They don't look like us.
Yeah.
Right. And when I say us, not just black, but wherever they are, they don't reflect who they're policing. Whether it be, African Americans, immigrants, women.
Yeah.
There's situations and things that women are going to go through in life that we are never going to understand. But we're going to be called to their house to help them deal with it or deal with whatever they did because of their situation. It would really help to have a woman come relate to a woman. Mm-hmm. There's situations that immigrants go through that we are never going to understand. Yeah. I happen to have, one guy is kind of crazy. We actually were in Portsmouth together. We were Fred Police together, and now we're at the Sheriff's Office together. We went to the academy together. His name's Mayo Aramayo. He's a Bolivian immigrant. We talk all the time about his experience. There's this stuff that I will never know about coming from one country to this country. I worked with another guy at Fred PD from El Salvador. Just because they're Hispanic, one, and two, because they're actually immigrants, not American born. That's two doors that I'll never be able to kick down. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important, and that's a huge struggle because of the stigma. It's just we're mostly getting, the police department all over America mostly filled with, white males. That's just the biggest number. Which is, I'm not knocking them for wanting to do this profession, but it really, and it's a obstacle that they didn't put in their place. But it's how do you relate to something you've never experienced? You don't know what it's like to be a black man in America. it shouldn't be held against you, but it would definitely help if you had a black man beside you that help you, you know, understand the experience. You don't know what it's like to be a female in America. You just don't know. I had a guy in Portsmouth who used to cut grass. He's walking down the street. What he would do is get his mower and his thing, he'd walk down the street, knock on doors. He'll knock on the door, and the guy was like, I want you to come back and say, cut my grass. Now, the way it was, his yard, it was like a row house in the city, so no yard in the front, yard in the back. He came back, he went to the backyard, opened the door, went there, knocked. Nobody answered. The guy forgot he had left. The neighbor comes out and says, hey man, what are you doing? Oh, the man wants me to cut his yard. Well, he's not home. Oh, my bad, he told me to come back at this time. He goes, I'll just leave. And the guy's like, well, no, hold on. He's like, he's not home. Why are you here? He said, I just told you. Neighbor says, well, I'm going to call the police. And, if everything's up, we can leave. The guy says, you call the police, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. Now, I catch up with both of them. Now, the neighbor was an older white male, living in a nice part of the neighborhood. So I'm not going to say he's rich, but, wasn't hurting for it by any means. And the other dude was a black guy who had a record, admittedly, told me. And the black guy's telling me, look, man, dude asked me to cut the grass. He said, you looked me up, and I did, because I had to for the call. He said, I used to get in trouble. I ain't been in trouble since 94. I'm just trying to cut grass. He said, but, he's talking about calling the police. He said, look at him, look at me. I don't want their problems. And so I got the understanding of him, and then you got the white guy who said, well, if there's no problem, what's the issue? If there's no issue, it's two different understandings. They don't know each other, right? It's two different understandings. He's really thinking in his mind, which a lot of people think, if you didn't do anything wrong, it's going to come out in the end. And he's thinking in his mind, I look wrong. They're gonna tell me I'm wrong. Well, let me just get out of here. Yeah. Being able to understand that situation, and it wasn't just me, there was another officer, a white officer with me, calmed it down, they shook hands, and everything was good. But having that understanding, and I don't know, but me understanding him may have really helped. Rather than another officer saying, oh, well, yeah, I believe you. Why is he leaving if nothing was wrong? See what I'm saying?
Right. I can see how that could have went so left by another officer arriving. And when like the police are called to a scene, it's very important, like especially for men, to be calm when they get there. You know what I'm saying? Because if you on 10, when they get there, you going to jail. Like, you're guilty by the, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's an important key to make, to go home with too. Like,
cooler heads always prefer.
Cooler heads, not automatically seeing them as the enemy, like.
Regardless, male or female.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, like you just said, you really just said it. If you see us as the enemy, and I'm not trying to sit there and say either side is right, but it's like the way the mind works is fight or flight. Your brain is always programmed to find out what is going to hurt me in this room, right? What is my biggest risk? What is here to hurt me? And if I walk into a situation, now obviously your fight or flight is saying the police are here to get me, so I'm going to be whatever. Well, now you made yourself stand out to the police officer, and they're like, your brain saying they mean harm. Not necessarily physical harm, but like, this person isn't right. And so now it's like, you're over here trying to conquer this beast, and the police are trying to conquer that beast, when somebody has to have the cooler head. Somebody has to have the cooler. And it's not incumbent upon, I'm not sitting there saying that citizens need to be the cool ones all the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying both sides. Yeah. Both sides need to walk in that door saying, I'm going to have the cooler head. I'm going to try to think this through. Yeah. Because if both sides have that mindset, then we'll have more and more situations that don't escalate.
Yeah. Maybe no one has to go to jail.
Yeah, all the time. That's the term they use when you talk yourself in cuffs.
I think that happens a lot. People talk themselves into going.
They do certain things. Yeah. But you know what? Let's keep it real too. There's a lot of times where they're probably, antagonized by the police to do it. So both sides need to do better. Both sides need to do better. Yeah.
What you got, Reese?
Man, hey, that was a lot, man. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was good. I appreciate you.
I didn't know we was going to go this long, man.
Yeah.
Part 2.
We've been rolling.
Yeah. But like I said, man, we appreciate the the insight.
Yeah.
You know, you being open to share everything with us.
Yeah.
You know, definitely, man. If you got anything else to,
Throw out
share with
there.
your people, man, or you got any questions for us, how we view anything, man, let us know.
No, I just want everybody out there to give everybody a chance. That's police and civilians, how you want to put it. Everybody's a person, Just because you had a bad experience with this officer doesn't mean it's going to be bad with that one. Just like, for the police officers out there, just because you had a bad experience with this person in the neighborhood doesn't mean everybody in the neighborhood thinks that way. Everybody's different. Everybody's their own person. You need to give everybody a chance. As hard as it may be, it's the only way it works.
Yeah.
That's it. There you have it, people. This is No Cap. We out.